So I think before we get started in all this, it's probably good for you to know a little bit about me and my own personal transformation, my own personal journey in health and fitness. I grew up in the southeastern United States, which is one of the most obese and overweight portions of the entire country. So I grew up on a diet that was really rich in starches, particularly white starches and white bread and biscuits and rice and things like that. We're also really big into desserts, so banana pudding, brownies and ice cream, cookies, chocolate, sundaes, you name it, I was eating it. So when I was younger, it was really easy for me to quickly get to 50 pounds overweight because I had a really poor diet. I was eating things like Hot Pockets and breakfast pastries for breakfast, followed up by a sports drink that I would drink on the way to school, which wasn't helping me because that was a ton of extra calories and sugars and carbohydrates that I didn't need in my diet. At lunch every day, I would usually drink 1 or 2 chocolate milks along with biscuits and gravy, fried chicken or fried chicken strips, white rice, biscuits, rolls, and pretty much smother everything in gravy or barbecue sauce. Then I would go home at night for dinner. My family would usually have something like meatloaf, again, steak and gravy, burgers. We used to eat pasta and spaghetti and lasagna a lot. We do enchiladas quite a bit throughout the week. So I would say roughly 70 to 80% of my diet came from carbohydrates and starches. And that's how I quickly blew up to be almost 50 pounds overweight when I was younger. If I can say one thing about that whole experience, I was really fat, I was miserable with the way I looked and felt, and it really didn't help that I was being bullied and pestered by kids about my weight. They would call me every name in the book, and I absolutely hated the way that I looked and felt about myself. I had no self-confidence, I had absolutely no self-esteem, but I was also so young that I didn't feel like I had a way out. I didn't know how to change the way I was eating. I didn't even know about dietary changes, and I thought I was playing enough with my friends in recreational sports and on the playground that should be helping, but I didn't really know anything about exercise or how to change my body because I was so young. So then I got into high school and I got really active because I had this really terrifying moment. When I was a freshman in high school, we had I think state, it may have even been a nationally mandated fitness test, and I was scared to death of it because I knew I was going to embarrass myself. I was still almost 50 pounds overweight at that time, and I was really out of shape. I couldn't run, I couldn't do a push-up, I couldn't do a pull-up, so for all that stuff, I just sat in embarrassment in front of my entire class as I ran a 12 or 13 minute mile. I couldn't do a single pull-up, like I said. Couldn't do a single push-up. My flexibility was even horrible, so I was in really bad shape, and I really think that's a traumatizing moment that will stick with me for the rest of my life and definitely my health and fitness career. So I got to the point where I got sick one year and I got bacterial pneumonia, and I went into the hospital over Christmas, and I had lost 7 pounds already because I was in so much pain when I was in the hospital I could hardly eat. So I decided to at least start cutting back the calories I was eating, because that's one thing that I had seen and known about as a kid from commercials or whatever it was that could be at least the first step into getting in shape and losing weight and not being miserable and not being bullied anymore. And then I gradually started getting active too. I had a couple really close friends of mine who were super encouraging and super supportive, who got me really into playing basketball and rec league basketball. So I was playing a ton of basketball, I was doing a ton of cardio during the week, and I ended up probably playing anywhere between 6 and 12 hours of basketball in a week or in a weekend, because for the longest time, that's all we do. So between cutting back my portions a little bit and changing a couple of the things I was eating, but honestly not changing too much because I was still doing things like drinking soda and eating pizza. I still had a huge sweet tooth. I was able to see those 50 pounds come off, and I was able to change my body and at least get skinny. So by just cutting back my portions a little bit and starting to get active and playing basketball with my friends, I was able to lose about 50 pounds, and I felt so much better after doing so. And then I took a weight training class. It was my first weight training class in high school, and I had a really great coach. And so I started to get into weightlifting, and I really didn't even know what I was biting into at the time. I just knew that I really enjoyed exercise, and I was blown away by the transformation I was able to make just with the small changes of portion control, and that I was still able to eat what I wanted to eat while I was losing weight. So he taught us about all the muscle groups and the skeletal system, and the difference between all different kinds of muscular hypertrophy, how to train different muscle groups. And he was really thorough with his processes, especially for a guy who was coaching us through weight training in high school. And I really ended up enjoying it, and I took another year of weight training with him. And that's where I really started to get into physical activity and motion in the body, and more than just a recreational game sense where I was just playing basketball, before I started to really get into fitness on my own. And that's also where I really fell in love with running. So throughout college, I continued to educate myself a little bit more on diet and exercise and what it meant to keep an athletic physique. But I really feel like I didn't know that much looking back on that time in my life, because most of my exercise program consisted of purely cardiovascular exercise. Like I said, I fell in love with running, so I was running for hours every week. And there was one point in time where I was running roughly 15 to 25 miles a week, and then weightlifting kind of became my auxiliary exercise. So I would go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, maybe, to perform some kind of weightlifting or resistance training. But my diet stayed pretty flexible, I guess you could say, because I was still doing things like drinking a huge glass of milk at dinner. I would have biscuits and gravy and sausage for breakfast in the morning, but I keep my lunches pretty light and have like a sandwich. And sometimes at dinner, I would have a salad, but there would be other nights that I would splurge and have a burger or hot wings or pizza or something like that. But I had enough activity in my life between the running and resistance training that I was still in good shape, but I found out later that I was skinny fat, because I would notice in the mirror when I would slip up and eat these meals like pizza or spaghetti, lasagna, anything fried, a ton of carbs like rice or bread or what have you, I'd notice that I could almost see the fat collect on my love handle. So I could still be thin, I could still be in good shape, but I had a little pudge hanging off of the side of me. And I really couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I thought, well, I'm running a ton, I'm burning a ton of calories, I'm doing resistance training, that should be helping. But I didn't really understand at that point how important it was to balance my diet even more. And at the time, I was also training myself into the ground. I would train 6 or 7 days a week hard. I would run and lift sometimes in the same day. And even when I was sick, I would keep working out. I remember I would have streaks of 17 or 18 days straight of exercise before I would take a day off. And that was just not healthy for me and not healthy for my lifestyle or my goals at the time. So I was kind of wearing myself out. And ever since then, I have plunged my life into health and fitness and diet and exercise. After I graduated from college, I decided to get my personal training certification because I was so passionate about that. And even though all of my college education was in business and marketing and entrepreneurship, I was really passionate about training people. I had worked out with a couple of friends throughout college and helped them get into better shape. And choosing a healthier lifestyle absolutely transformed every aspect of my life and my body. Now I have a self-confidence, a self-discipline, and a self-esteem that I've never had before. I've got a discipline for just about everything I approach in my life, whether it's work or exercise or relationships or friends or planning a vacation. I feel like I applied that discipline that I've used in my diet and in my exercise program in just about everything that I do. So now I've kind of seen the entire spectrum that I've wanted to of health and fitness. I've got down to 8% body fat and pulled out my 6-pack abs now that I've dialed my diet in. I work out about half the amount of time that I used to, and this is about the best that I've ever looked. And I'm really happy to say that because I was worried about my metabolism falling off the charts the older that I got. And I think a lot of us worry about that. But I've noticed that by treating my body right and feeding it the right calories at the right times and the right foods, and trying to eat as much real food as possible, and keeping my exercise program centered around resistance training, but also making cardio a very important component because your heart is one of the most important muscles of your body. I've been able to make small changes to the way I eat and the way that I train so that at any given point I can take 6 months and put on 20 or 30 pounds of muscle mass, or I can take another 4 weeks and cut all of that mass down and all that fat away and get back down to really pulling my abs out. So I just thought it would be really great for you to know a little bit about where I'm coming from and my own personal experiences and transformations in health and fitness. And I just want to let you know that I'm using every bit of my education and personal experience to inform you so that I can teach you how to get into the absolute best shape of your life, so that you can experience that energy, that self-confidence, that self-esteem boost, so that you can apply that discipline in any area of your life that you choose to, so that you can change your body in any way that you want to positively and transform your life for the better.